Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and today we are going to review the Cessna Caravan Pro by Black Square and Just Flight. Many of you know that Black Square are among my favorite developers, and they have once again delivered. The Cessna Caravan Pro is the successor of the earlier steam gauge overhaul Caravan, but this one is not just an internal modeling of the airplane. This one features a completely custom built model that has a lot of different features available, and it of course does come with all the specifics that you would expect of the full-blown add-on. Now, today we are going to do a little review here of the outside, inside, and then we are going to take it into the air flying from St. Martin to St. Barths with their beautiful approach over in St. Barths. And en route we are going to do a little bit of air work here to test the flight dynamics of the airplane. Now, I'd say we are going to jump right into this with a look at the exterior model. Now, the exterior model is really well done. Like, if you go close up, you can see lots of details over here on the airplane. You can also interact with a lot of things. For example, down here on the cargo pod, you can open and close all the dedicated hatches. And by the way, talking about the cargo pod, all models coming with the project, which are either the passenger version of the airplane, or a bundle package of the amphibian and cargo version of the airplane, or a bundle of all three, which does come at a reduced price compared to the price of the standalone versions as well. All of those versions do have a version with the lower cargo pod installed or not installed, and these are even provided in dedicated flight dynamics as well, so that the airplane does behave correctly. Now, we are going to fly the model with the cargo pod today, as you can see. Now let's go ahead and review or remove the air intake over here. Quick look at the propeller. Again, over here, really nice level of detail with those markings on the side. You can move the prop manually if you so desire. Next up, let's have a look at the nose landing gear, which is in a good shape over here and which does show a good level of detail as well, as you can see over here. Alright then, moving a little bit further backwards, we can interact with all those aircraft doors as well. You can also extend those stairs if you so desire, and we can do the same thing a little bit further back with the passenger entry door as well. So let's go ahead and open that up, and here we go, that's our passenger entry. Now, going a little bit further then, let's go ahead and close this one back down. Trying to find the click spot, here it is. So there's the passenger door getting closed again. Beautiful level of detailing on the back here. And do note that little switch on the back, which is the rudder lock. Can activate or deactivate that back here. And you do also have a little switch for that in the EFB in the cockpit, just in case you forget it or miss it out here. Now, we do have a second door in the back, which is also animated, which kind of serves as the cargo door on the cargo version of the airplane, or also as the door to let out your skydivers if you are flying that particular version of the aircraft. So again, lots of interactions possible over here. Note that if the control lock is not installed, you can also interact with things like the flaps, the ailerons over there, and all these lovely parts of the models. Overall, beautiful modeling, without any doubt over here, and I'd say definitely one on the enjoyable side. Now let's remove that pitot cover, let's also remove those chocks, and then we can go ahead and crawl inside and have a look at what we can find inside our Caravan. Alright, so here we are. Let's go ahead and get started on that cockpit. So we are gonna keep that door open for air conditioning here. As you can see, by default, we are fitted with the GTN 750 and GTN 650, and in the electronic flight pack, you can switch between the TDS GTN XI or the PMS 50, or you can also install a whole different set of avionics. For example, we can install the GNS 530, 430 over here. We can also install a KLM 90B, or we can just go to standard nav radios if we want to, like this, for example. So, as you can see, loads of options available in our Caravan over here, and really a lot that you can just set there. So let's just take away that 530, put it in 430 instead. As you can see, all of that stuff can be done so that you can configure that airplane to your liking. Now I'm going to go with a 530-430 combination for today's flight. Now down here you do have a lot of options available as well, and there is one that I want to point out in particular, and that is the realistic yoke movement. What that does is that the yoke is going to move within the slipstream of the air. You will see that in action when we start the run-up later on, and I tell you, this is really cool animation. Apart from that, we can also show Copilot inside, and we do have a couple more options over there. Then we do have the payload page, and over here let's go ahead and load a full complement of passengers, also some baggage. We do see our center of gravity down there, so that we can have a good check at that. Now what you can notice is that sometimes it does give you some rather different weights over here. So let's just make sure that those are set appropriately. Do note that this does include baggage weight for those passengers, so just something to have a little eye on. And then you can check that with your current growth weight up here compared to your maximum takeoff weight. You can also operate all the doors in here if you want to. You can also replenish your oxygen. Now the oxygen indicator is located right up here. And why do we have that system in the first place? How does it work? So the Caravan can easily fly at heights above 10,000 feet, but it does not have a pressurized cabin. So that means if you want to do that, you do need oxygen. Now you can plug yourself an oxygen mask in and then get oxygen from that tank, and this is how it works in the Caravan. Now that's something that you could refill down here as well. Overall, you can also control the exterior elements that you can control from the walk around right within here if so desired. Okay, so we got half full tanks. We're at almost 8,000 pounds, 8,750 is maximum takeoff weight over here. Next up, we can monitor our engine conditions. We can also see our engine condition and repair it if required in here, as those things do clog up over time and your battery can discharge as well. On the electrical side, we can see the entire electrical system in operation, and the same goes for the cabin, where we can see how the entire thing works. Now, quite some nice stuff that you can access through this EFB. What I would personally still hope for is some sort of SimBrief implementation. Unfortunately, it is technically not possible at the moment with the way that this EFB is implemented, which is a little unfortunate, but I do hope that they are going to do that at some point in the future. Alright, lastly, we do have the failure page over here, which can generate random failures based on the mean time between failure mode, or you can go to scheduled mode, where you can arm when failures are going to occur. So there's several different options. You can also control how quickly failures are going to occur. So I've set it to a real-time probability, and within about 5 hours that I've flown the airplane, I did actually happen to get one flap drive failure, which might have been influenced by flying a little faster and extending them as well. Might. Of course I would never do that. Alright, so that's the failure page, and that's the EFB in general. Let's go ahead and stow that one again, and just have a quick look through our airplane's cabin. So, got the circuit breakers down here. All of those are simulated. Easy to tell when one is popped because you do see the red shaft of them. Then you do have your engine generator controls and that kind of stuff. On the left hand side, lights in the front, anti-icing at the bottom, and cabin air conditioning down here. And yeah, that's about it. Engine gauges at the top, typical Caravan, and then your standard set of flight instruments. Well, and that's pretty much the cockpit of the Caravan. So rather easy one, but definitely a very well, let's say very well sorted one. You very quickly find your way through the flight deck and very quickly can make yourself comfortable with it. Alright, let's go ahead and close up over here. Easy way to close the door is by clicking the handle up here. Here we go. I'm gonna leave that window open though, because, well, it is freaking hot outside. Alright, with that we have basically finished up our tour around the aircraft and its models. The cabin itself, well, typical passenger cabin, 1-2 configuration in here. Don't expect too much, you're not paying too much for that flight either. Sitting back here, very nice view from the passenger perspective. Passenger service unit on the overhead as well. You can operate those lights individually, and yeah, you can also control the sunshades if you so desire over here. Well, like that. Alright, those are freely movable. Okay, cool, and that's an overview of the cabin. So let's now go ahead and do what we do best on this channel, and that is actually flying aircraft. If you're looking for cinematics, I always say that there are guys who do that much better than I do, but let's go into the flying part. So we'll be flying it according to the product manual that is provided, so that's where the checklists do come from. So let's go into the before starting engine checklist. That's pre-flight inspection complete, passenger cabin door unlocked, cabin doors latched, parking brake, it's located down here, is set. Air control lock removed, seats and seatbelts are secured, switches are all off, ignition switch normal, circuit breakers all in. Then fuel selectors, both on, oxygen is above 1850 psi and off. So ventilation and air conditioning, that one's pushed in, all off, and pushed in. Okay, cabin bleed air is off, cabin mixing air is flight push. Then emergency power lever normal, power lever idle, prop lever full forward, fuel condition lever cutoff, fuel cutoff is pushed in, firewall valve pushed in. With that we have basically completed the safety inspection, but the checklist does go on. Battery switch on, light test checked, fire detection tested, flap lever up, and no smoking and seatbelt signs are on, and that's the before starting engine checklist complete. Now, no smoking and seatbelt signs. We'll go back into the cabin over here. Is it me, or can I actually not find them? I could swear I saw them at some point. Maybe when AC power is up. Alright, here we are again. Okay, so engine start checklists. That's gonna be beacon light on, avionic 1 switch on, and you can see that one only powers the COM1 unit, which in case is the GNS 530. Then we also get the ADF, the transponder, which should be on standby at this point, and the autopilot. We do not get the COM2 unit, the KNS 80 nav system, or the weather radar powered at this point. Okay, so bus voltage, 24 volts minimum, we're on 25 over there. Then emergency power annunciator is extinguished, propeller area clear, and then we can go ahead with the engine start. So, fuel boost pump on, then fuel pressure low annunciator is off, fuel flow 0, starter engaged. Now we see the NG rising. At 12% minimum we can add fuel, but that's gonna make the engine run pretty hot. We can go up to 1090 degrees for the starter limit there, so it's better to just let it keep spooling up. Here we go, until it reaches maximum motoring, and then add the fuel into the low setting, because that's going to keep the engine much colder, as you'll see now. See that? We're only going up to 700 degrees. Otherwise we could easily have gone up to 1000 or 900-ish in this type of weather. Okay, so NG is reaching 52%, start switch off, starter engaged and annunciator extinguished, engine instruments checked, generator load positive, battery charging current negative, fuel boost pump norm. Okay, fuel boost pump annunciator extinguished, weather radar off, avionic 2 switch on, Nav lights as required off, suction checked, remote compass, slave, and let's compare that with that, aligned. Okay, ventilation and defrost as required, and I am going to turn on the cooling and all the AC fans in order to bring the cabin down to a nice temperature. And radios checked, and that's the before starting engine checklist complete. So, little temperature indicator down here telling us if it's hot or cold, just because we can't feel it. Over here you got the actual gauge, which you can switch between Fahrenheit and Celsius. 33 degrees, obviously pretty warm, but hey, it's 29 outside. Okay, so with that our engine startup is completed. It's rather loud in here, but now that we do have air conditioning, we can also close that storm window, making it quite a bit more quiet in here. I do very much prefer that. Now, we can also put on the headset, making it even nicer for us audibly. Alright, let's go ahead and enter a quick flight plan over here. We are going from TNCM like that, over to TFFJ. Here we go. Very quick flight, just a couple of miles really. Alright, GPS position still acquiring, that's not a problem. We'll leave the frequencies as they are right now. Autopilot, I'm going to set 1500 in here. We don't really intend to go any higher than that. And finally, let's go ahead and start up that weather radar. So a quick 17-mile flight, as you can see. You go on the flight plan. Both units are synchronized with one another. Down here we can tune 115. That's just something I always see. That frequency is not up. Don't really care about the others. Right, now, we do want to monitor COM1 and 2. Okay, lovely. So with that, we have pretty much set our entire airplane up over here. So that would be the point where we'd call for taxi. Something else we can set is 133 on the course. Let me just put that in. Right, 133, GPS nav is selected. That's it. And it's a runway 10 over here. So heading back going there. Okay, cool. And with that, we've pretty much set our airplane up. So let's go for the taxi checklist. Flight instruments check, cabin lights off, cockpit lighting as required, taxi and recog light coming on. Inertial separator as required, can stay off as we're on prepared surfaces here. Parking brake release, brakes test, remote compass aligned, and that's the taxi checklist complete. Okay, so let's go. The parking brake is indeed released down there. Now I am going to take that headset off again, just because I know that you guys love the sound and don't really like it when it's too quiet. So the plane nicely rolls with the engine in idle thrust. There is a beta range simulated if you need it. That's like this. And you can see that in beta it is not really trying to accelerate anymore. You can get it all the way down to stop, so the beta range is simulated properly in the Caravan, and if you can really control the taxi speed nicely with it. So brakes are checked. Instruments, let's see the left-hand turn. You can see compass is turning left, turn coordinator left, ball to the right, just like it should. And then once we're reaching the right-hand turn up there, we will observe the same into the other end side. And with that, we have checked our instruments. Now, I do kind of have to say, with the tendency of the airplane to accelerate that much when you take the prop outside the beta range, it is somewhat impressive how fast you can get quickly. So right now we're at 20 knots, but you easily find yourself at 30. Okay, so let's now watch the instruments going into the other direction. Compasses turn right, turn coordinator goes right, ball goes left, so all of that stuff is actually functioning. Alright. So here we are. Parking brake is set, and then we can do the before takeoff run-up checklist. With parking brake set, seats and seatbelts secured, flight controls are checked, standby alternator on, standby alternator load. Interesting, that one shouldn't be showing us anything right now. And if I put my engine into idle and the main generator therefore kicks on, that is working. Okay, so that was my fault. So, standby alternator on, standby alternator is now checked to be at 0 amps. Generator load up 30 to 60. Let's see, we are above 30 already, so that's good. Okay, then generator switch trip. And the standby alternator is taking that load. And generator switch reset. And the main generator is back online, so that stuff works. So, fuel pump, normal. Fuel selectors, both on. Fuel quantity is checked. Fuel cutoff, pushed in. Trims, 1, 2, and 3 are set for takeoff. Flaps, 10. Note that you can move them freely anywhere within the range if you absolutely want to. Okay, so flaps set for takeoff, then power lever 400 foot-pounds. Here we go, that's 400. So suction is checked, bus voltage is greater than 24 volts. Inertial separator on, and we can note a drop in the torque. ITT should increase a little bit as well, maybe it did, not 100% sure, but that is okay for me. Then inertial separator off, and indeed we could see the ITT needle move a little bit down there. Okay, then engine instruments are checked, power lever up to 1800 RPM. And do note how the yoke is moving. That's not me, that's the elevator moving within the slipstream of the aircraft. Look at this outside. You got the wind from the props moving over here across the elevator, and that's why the yoke is moving over here. Alright, here we go. 1800 PSI, governor test. And they go down to 1750, plus minus 60. That's good. And power lever idle. You can nicely hear that sound when you reach the idle position down there. Just listen to that again. Which easily tells you when you reach the idle position so that you don't accidentally go into the beta range. That's quite nice. Okay, good. So, now let's go ahead and test all the anti-icing system. For that we monitor the generator again. And then we do watch the generator load increase as we switch on the anti-icing system down here. So pitot heat works, stall heat works, wing light works, windshield heat works, prop heat works. Now let's go ahead and switch all of those off again, and then we can check the boots. So automatic cycle, let's have a look, and you can see the boots inflate over here. That is looking fantastic. Okay, so anti-icing system is checked. Next up we check the autopilot. Heading mode on. You can see the yoke turn left, heading back to the right, and the yoke turns right. Disengage switch works. Alright, and then we can set the runway heading once again down there. Alright, lovely. With that we are basically all through our run-up procedures, so let's go ahead and prepare the airplane for our lineup. So that's battery charging current, less than 10 amps, weather radar, on, strobe lights, on, annunciators, tested and considered, flight instruments, checked and set, storm window closed, cabin mixing air, flight push, fuel condition lever, high idle, and parking brake release. Alright then. Ready to go. We'll depart off to the right hand side. then I'd say we just do 1 or 2 touch and goes over here before heading over to St. Barth. And we can just quickly set that altimeter to 0, because that's pretty much where we are. Okay, so takeoff checklist, transponder, alt mode, landing lights, on, inertial separator as required off, and then we can go ahead and set our takeoff thrust. So ready? Do a little takeoff marking on the torque indicator over here, which is at 1865. Okay, here we go. Power set, brakes released. We're pretty heavy. According to the POH, we should rotate 65 knots. I'm going to do that a little bit later because the plane really doesn't like to fly at those very low speeds. So here's 65. Let's do 75. Here we go. Rotate. And you can see it does fly beautifully. Though I gotta say, it doesn't climb as well when you are below about 90 knots. You are pretty much on the backside of the power curve there. Once you go above 90 knots, that's when you can get the airplane to start climbing properly. Also note that you do need quite a bit of right rudder. As we're just going to fly a traffic pattern or 2 at first, I am just going to accept that. But once we go en route, we will definitely be trimming that out using the rudder trim down here. Okay, so let's turn into a right-hand downwind. That's 1,000 to go. Actually, for the pattern, I'm just going to set the AP a little bit higher so that we're not annoyed by it. Okay, flaps up. We're pretty fast here at 120 knots, so I'm just going to continue the turn all the way into the downwind. There's our runway, and here we are. Alright, that's 1,000 feet. Let's just gonna go ahead and reduce that power a little bit, trim it out. And here we are, nicely established in the downwind. Now we're passing beam the threshold. We are at 1,000 feet. That means we got to fly for 30 seconds. So start the elapsed timer. Looking for 30 seconds. That's kind of the airliner way to fly traffic pattern here. Altitude in hundreds. Times 3, that gives you your downwind timing. So, speed limits for the flaps are written right down here. 175 till flaps 10, 160 till 20, and then 125 for flaps full. Okay, here's 30 seconds. Let's start that base turn. A little bit less power, flaps 10. Then we can start a shallow descent over here. Okay, so there's got to be our runway. A little difficult to see, admittedly. But here we go, right base. 100 knots, looking good. I'm just looking at the FO instruments here so that I can keep a view outside of the window. And let's not descend too quickly. And turn final. Slight overshoot, but with that bad visibility it was a little difficult to judge, so not gonna complain about that. Alright, so flaps 20, and the speed is nicely down, flaps full. Note that we are flying VFR, not IFR, so being slightly above the puppy is no problem. In fact, I do want a little steeper angle than when flying IFR, so that we do have options in case the engine does quit here. Remember, we are flying a single engine airplane. Bird strike into the prop goes down. Don't want to be right down in the water. Alright, so we'll just do normal touch and go. After touchdown, retrim, flaps 10. And we're aiming right down to the numbers. Power idle. Flare. And touchdown. Okay, so trimmer set, flaps up. Let's add power. Here we go, takeoff power set, 75, rotating. This time I'm just picking up a little bit of speed a bit closer to the runway, since we do have the distance available, so that we get the better rated climb later on. You get the best angle at 102 knots. Alright, positive climb, flaps up, and then we can start the right hand turn. Well, that was an easy one. So, landing dynamics, as you can see, are pretty easy in the Caravan. You just gotta flare it on time and then it flies beautifully. We are gonna do one more, this time maybe a little bit closer pattern so that it doesn't waste too much of your time. But you can see I just love flying this. Right, let's keep the bank at 25. And you can see if you do accelerate it at a little lower altitude, it does climb rather well. Okay, there we go. There's our runway right down there. Visibility isn't perfect, but well within VFR limits, so I'm happy to fly like that. So here we are, 1,000 feet. Let's reset that timer. Even though I'm kind of thinking we are not going to need 30 seconds downwind this time. There's the runway. I'm going to start the timer, but basically if we do turn base right now, it should be fine. Alright, flaps 10. This time we really do have to descend a bit earlier though. 1,000 feet a minute, remember, unpressurized aircraft. Flaps 20. Can't really see that runway yet. There it is. Let's not get too low. Can't see the poppy over there. And then we turn final. Alright, flaps full. And here we are. So, speed down to 80 knots. Then we're aiming for the numbers once again. And we really do gotta get that right. Because if we can't put the plane down on time, then we don't even have to try flying over to St. Barths. But overall, you can really see it handles pretty nicely. Pretty much exactly like I would expect a plane like this to handle. Alright, power idle. You can really feel how it wants to start descending when you go idle. Flare. And now we'll just hold it until it settles down. See? Easy. Very easy. Okay, trim is set, flaps 10, and then let's go. So, take a power set. 75, rotate. Positive climb. And this time I'm just going to climb at 80, just to show you how much of a difference that actually makes. So let's try constant speed. I'm pulling some speed off right now. Here you go. Really only get a couple hundred feet a minute less. Now if I do retract the flaps in this situation, you really feel how the plane doesn't want to climb anymore, even though you are well within the green range on the speed indicator. Right, now we got it. Now it's a nice climb. Okay, so let's start the turn direct to St. Bartholomew. Just gaining a little bit of altitude quickly over here to get clear of those hills. And then we'll be climbing up to 1500 for our cruise. Okay, so you can see if I don't apply any rudder, the ball is rather deflected. Let's go ahead, add a bit of rudder trim here to the right. Here you go, that's nicer, isn't it? Ooh, a little turbulent here, going across the hills. We do not have infinite power available in the Caravan, at least not with this type of weight. If you are at a low weight, it easily gives you some 2000 feet a minute. But if you're at higher gross weights with a full load of passengers, you can see that you do get limited. Okay, here we are, 1500. Let's trim her out. Ooh. Hello. I do hope that those bumps are not foreshadowing of what we can expect over in St. Barths, because we will be flying across mountains there as well. Alright, now I think it's nicely stabilized. So, heading block is matched. Autopilot on, Alt hold. 1500 feet. Okay, good. We are nicely accelerating. Let's go ahead and pull off a little bit of power and set our cruise power. So looking for 1600 inches and 1750 RPMs. Watch how the torque rises when I decrease the RPMs. Here we go, that's 1750. And now we're looking for 1600 foot-pounds. I said inches earlier, obviously we're not flying. Obviously we're not flying the very small toys today. Okay, so cruise power is set. Now, what's the cabin temperature here? 22. Good. Okay, so everything's set up for our cruise. The autopilot decides to cruise a bit higher, that's fine. What's a QNH? 2990. So be it. And the weather radar can just go like neutral. Okay, nice. So we need 4.5 minutes to get over to St. Barths. Let's just go ahead and make a little use of that time to explore some of the abilities of the aircraft. So autopilot system is a rather basic one. You got heading, nav, approach, back course, and altitude. You can also arm altitude hold, and you gotta set your QNH down there using the barrel knob. Otherwise you are going to be surprised that the autopilot might fly different altitudes than what you are seeing on your altimeter. Now, apart from that, you also do have your KNS-80 on-off computer. That one is really worthy of its own video, and if you want to see that thing in action, have a look at my flight in the Duke from about 2 years ago or something, where we did go across the Alps completely without any GPS unit installed, just based on VORs and the KNS-80. That was really good old 1980s style navigation. That was really cool. You can also select that on the HSI source nowadays, and you can also couple the autopilot nav mode to that in the Caravan Pro. Now, looking at our cruising speed, let's just get the temperature, which is 23 degrees. So looking at the cruising speed, lovely 150 indicated, a little bit faster in terms of true airspeed. If we do look down here, we can set our pressure altitude, which is 1500, so roughly something here, to about 22 degrees like this. And that tells us that down here we are going at a true airspeed of 160 knots, which is roughly what the airplane is supposed to fly, according to the numbers in the manual as well. Alright, technically speaking we are a little bit too low for it, but I am gonna go for a bit of air work over here anyway, just to show you how the airplane does perform. So we are like right in the middle now, 6 miles to go to St. Barths. So let's go ahead and disconnect that autopilot, and then I am going to do steep turns left and right, and also cancel out that trim real quick. So, steep turns left and right, just to get a bit of a feeling for how the airplane is going to behave. Obviously, you wouldn't do that with passengers on board. That's 45 degrees, a bank. Let's maintain those 1600. Easy. Let's do 60 degrees a bank, because that is where it's a bit more fun. With that, you're basically pulling 2 Gs in order to maintain your altitude. Don't do that with passengers on board. They won't be happy. They really won't be happy. But this really practices the instrument scan. It also gives you a feeling for how the airplane behaves on different control inputs. Let's do the same in a right-hand turn. Here we go. You need a good instrument scan because you got to control airspeed, pitch, bank, and altitude. At the same time, also your vertical speed, and yeah, overall, this is the type of maneuver that really sharpens your skills on handling the airplane. Alright, so we got this now. Let's get down in idle. Let's also advance the prop fully. And next up, we are going to do some low speed stuff. Now, we are at a very low altitude over here. Obviously, we wouldn't do that in the real world like this. But I just want to go over the stall, both in clean as well as in landing config. Alright, there's the horn. Smoothly reduce the pitch, add some power. Here we go, easy. Now let's do the same thing in landing config. Here you go, flaps full. Let's maintain the current altitude, 1750. Start reducing power. Okay, here's the stall warning. Gently lower the nose. Easy. Very easy. Okay, great. So we're in 1500 now. Our speed is down to 80 knots already. I am gonna leave it there as we're about to start the approach in St. Barths. So here's the first rock that we are gonna fly to. Down there's the runway. We do want to go down to about 1,000 for the first rock. Now there's two chances how this could go. Either everything is going to be fine and we'll do a beautiful landing down there, or the simulator is going to give us a bit of turbulence that might very well lead to us losing control of the aircraft at the low speed we need over here. I'm going to show you how the airplane takes gusts and stuff in a separate video, showing off the cargo version of the airplane. That's going to release, I don't know, probably in the next couple of days or so. And you will notice that when gusts are hitting, like, I think I went up to gust 22 or something, then let's just say airplane control is a bit different under these cases. Alright, so landing St. Bartholomew is a little, let's say, different from what you would usually do, in that we first of all actually have to find that airfield. In the meantime, let's quickly do the descent and before landing checks. Let's pitot heat off, ice protection off, no smoking seatbelts on, prop lever, maximum power lever set. Alright, here we go. And before landing checklist, seatbelts on, fuel selector, both, oxygen off, landing lights on, inertial separator off, condition lever high, idle and power lever is in full forward. Alright, there's the runway. So we're going to maintain those 80 knots, not crash into the mountain down here, and there we go. What are those ground handlers doing there? Flare. So latest touchdown point. I think I exaggerated a bit on that rudder. Well, that looked interesting. But okay, here we are. Easy going, isn't it? No, I'm honest, that wasn't my best landing. That wasn't my best one. But I got a bit confused seeing those GSX ground handlers just hanging there in the air, I'm honest. Seeing those guys on approach kind of caught me off guard. So the question is, do we just want to do it again and do it correct this time? Up to you guys. After all, we are about 47 minutes into the video already, but I tell you what, I'm going to take the time to do one more traffic pattern here, demonstrating the short field takeoff technique in that occasion as well. So for that, we're going to go flaps 20, the trim is once again set. I'm just simply going to backtrack the runway over here, because why wouldn't we? Just make it easy. And here we are. So let's not waste too much runway during the lineup. Okay. So, short field takeoff technique. Flaps 20. Trims are set, just to verify. Yep, trims are set. And with that, we're good to go. So I'm going to hold the brakes until we have stabilized at takeoff power, rotate at 65. And then we have to do an early left turn in order not to smash into the mountains ahead of us. So here we go, takeoff power set, brakes released. Speed alive. 65, rotate. And here we go, we are flying. Slowly accelerating, and then we can start a shallow left turn here to get clear of those mountains. pretty much like this. Beautiful. Okay, cool. Flaps 10. I'm gonna fly around the island and come back for a second approach, which is gonna be a little nicer one this time. Alright, and flaps up. That's 100 knots, then we can continue the climb. We will start the approach out of 1,000 feet. Just to make it nice and safe there, with enough distance from the mountain and the runway. Now, there was a little bit of turbulence over the mountain. I did expect much worse, to be honest, so I am rather happy with this. Alrighty, there's 100 to go. Let's slowly lower that nose to level off in 1,000. Was a little bit too fast even, but who cares? Alright, reducing that power, trimming it out. That's fantastic. Here's 1,000 feet, speed is looking good. Alright, let's start the left-hand turn. Looking for the outer one of the two rocks. The problem is really that you can't see the runway until very late in the approach here. That's also the reason why we're approaching so incredibly high over here in St. Barths. Really an enjoyable airport to fly to. Alright, and there is the outer rock. Now, some of you are probably going to tell me in the comments, no, this is an island, and the name of this island is, insert name here. And you would be absolutely right with that. But to me, this is a rock, because there is just nothing on it. Okay, let's start slowing down. Flaps 10. So there's the inner rock, and the runway is behind here. Alright, start on the left-hand turn. All of that while maintaining 1,000 feet. Yeah, stop beeping, autopilot. Here we go, looking good. Flaps 20. Speed is coming back. Runway slowly does start coming aside over there. But we're not going to start any real descent just yet. Flaps full. And here's the problem. Now you really have difficulty actually seeing that runway. Alright. There it is. So let's start aligning ourselves. So we're about a mile from the runway, 1,000 feet, so that's a 9-degree descent slope. Alright, idle power, down we go. There's the runway. And now we can nicely see it as well. This time we do expect the GSX guys to sit there in the air. Turbulence. Alright, flare, touchdown, brakes. That was looking a lot better than the first one, wasn't it? New airplane, still getting used to it. Okay. And here we are. So, I'm pretty sure most of those passengers are going to write reports to the airline after all of this, but hey. If you choose to fly with me, you choose your own demise. So, here we are. Great, then let's do the after landing checklist. which is flaps up, pitot heat off, ice protection off, strobe lights off, taxi record lights on, landing lights off, condition lever, low idle, weather radar. Yep, just gonna turn that off. And inertial separator as needed. Won't need it here after landing checklist complete. So the passenger door is on the right hand side. That means I am just gonna taxi past the apron here to make the turn into the gate a little bit easier. Could have exited here and made a 180 on the apron, but why should I? Okay, and then we are just gonna park on P1 over here. And yeah, let's try to stop here. So, shutdown and securing checklist. Parking brake set, avionics off, standby alternator off, fuel boost pump off, AC or heat and AC are all off. So power lever idle for a minute. We've basically had that. Prop lever feather. And fuel condition lever cut off. So, taxi light off, let's go ahead and wait until the prop is spun down, then we can also turn off the beacon and thereafter the power. So, props coming down, and that is looking good. We do have a US registered aircraft, we better wait until that thing has completely stopped, otherwise if even just a bird puts his wing into the way, we're probably going to pay a couple millions in compensation. Alright, so that is looking good. Alright, beacon off, battery off, fuel selectors both off, oxygen off, and inertial separator off. Shutdown and securing checklist complete. So we'll put the control lock into place, and then we can open that up, and all I can say is welcome to St. Barths. I hope you guys have enjoyed the flight. Overall, my review of the Caravan is a really positive one. I do love flying it, it's just a joy to operate, and as you can see, you can, with a little bit of training, do very easy smooth landings on any normal runways, and then even fly it in airports like this one, where you do have the, let's just say, somewhat different runways. As always though, thank you very much for watching everyone. I do hope you enjoyed the flight. As always, leave your feedback in the comments underneath the video. Black Square and Just Flight, Grand Caravan Pro. This one in the passenger version, we'll fly the cargo version soon. Both are available separately, or you can get the bundle at a reduced price. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much to Just Flight for providing me a review copy, as well as to the airport developers for providing me copies of theirs for this flight. And with that, thank you very much. As always, like, comment and subscribe. And if you do love what I'm doing on this channel, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all again on the next one.